Logue for everyone.
Let's get serious.
Do we have to?
Hello. No.
Okay.
Are you looking forward to playing a tough son of a bitch again?
Yeah, it's not like, yeah, Lee Tork and Sons of Anarchy was probably a little tougher than Harvey Bullock, but yeah, no, it's great. It was interesting because at the TCAs, a critic asked that the show was really violent and it wasn't for young fans, which was I mean, anyway, my kids watched Lord of the Rings when they were 2 and loved it, you know. But I was like, violent compared to what, Vikings and Sons of Anarchy, like, come on. But it's been fantastic. Right now we're right in the middle of production, so it's fun. It's hard actually to kind of get yanked from that because we're finding these rhythms and strides. So it's a blast, and every episode so far is really, really strong. We always felt the pilot was strong. And what's interesting is usually, even if you watch a pilot for The Sopranos or something, it takes a while to find a rhythm for a show. But I think we found one pretty quickly, and so we're having fun with it. It's exciting to share it because all of those kind of what if, how can you questions will be answered once people, even tonight when more people see the pilot.
What's the feeling of being part of the legacy now? Because every time you do something, it becomes part of the story.
Absolutely, like you get a thumbprint on a world that's very important to a lot of people. So my only experience with Harvey Bullock prior was the animated series, and my kids would watch it as we drove up to our house in Oregon, and so I was familiar with that, but I obviously was going to make it kind of my own thing, but now you take your place on the shelf among all the other people who have had a kind of play in this world, and it's exciting, really exciting. Thank you.
For a show that you can't really say much about without giving much away, do you want audiences to really be excited about it and surprised? How are you describing it? How are you saying to people like why they should be tuning in? Why is this a show that is...
No, it's interesting. I've never really been on a show before where you had to try and create say something like Terriers, which the title isn't really implicit of what it's like. You have to generate all of that kind of information. You have to go, give us the pitch. It's like, you don't have to pitch Gotham. It's in the nomenclature, and to me, I was always drawn by it, not because I'm necessarily into fantasy, the superhero aspect of it. I always liked it because it was kind of Raymond Chandler-esque and James Ellroy. I always liked the noirish part of the American, kind of like the id of the American urban belly type thing, and the underbelly of almost all. It's kind of like Gotham became this descriptive term for just almost the seedier side of any big metropolitan center. So that's what really drew me to it, and that's what we're kind of playing up. It feels like Chinatown. It feels a bit like he's Jake Eddie's in Chinatown, and Jim Gordon comes, he's really idealistic, but he's partnering up with a guy who's kind of been through it and been beat down, but maybe he's got one good kind of, he's got a bit of goodness left in him, to answer it takes a guy like Jim Gordon to bring that back out in Harvey Bullock.
What's the strength of doing a prequel series as opposed to diving right in the middle of it?
I always felt that, like Don DeLillo his fiction was always strongest when it was like, I'm going to take the Kennedy assassination and invent possible scenarios to lead up to, we know what happened, we know the events of that day, so it gives you really something. The hardest thing when inventing a narrative storyline is beginning, middle, you already have these kind of tent poles to hang from. So I just think that it's a big advantage because, and the challenge would be, say, like from what you had asked before, people know. Look, we know that at some point Batman is Batman and the Penguin is full. The Penguin doesn't fight the moniker of the Penguin. He learns to embrace it and become it. We know we're going to get to that point. So I don't think there's suspense about will the Penguin survive this episode? How do you build that kind of suspense? But it's just like, oh my God, if only for that we wouldn't have had all of this,
It's the truth.
If Hitler would have been accepted to art school in Vienna, what if, or something. So that's part of the fun of this.
What do you think about the explosion of all the DC adaptations this season?
Crazy.
Do you think that's helpful to your show?
I think high tide floats all boats. Like, so, just like anything in life, there's no, it's absolutely. I mean, I think comics in general were always the most natural kind of fit for this because they're evolving storylines. They're literally storyboarded the way a DP would, they're drawn out with bits of dialogue attached to them. It's harder to adapt things like novels and stuff because it's so much internal dialogue. Comics are really cinematic in a way. So, and Jeff Johns, who runs DC's just been great. So, I think there's room for everybody.
Are we going to see the show delve into your backstory a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. I just kind of found some little tidbits out about that, so we're getting to that pretty soon, actually.
How much do you know about the backstory of your character when you sign up for a role like this?
I had a good long talk with Bruno about it, and it felt. First, Bruno is brilliant, and every time I hear him, I can't articulate the show the way that he can, and that was kind of the same. My meeting with him about Harvey Bullock, it just he made it so plain that I don't mean to. It's never necessarily easy, but from my perspective, playing a part, sometimes you don't have to try that hard. Like when you have to work really hard to try and figure out a character, it's not always necessarily the best thing. Harvey Bullock was a much easier cloak to put on than, say, Donovan in Copper or King Horik in Vikings, or so it felt pretty easy and it felt like it made sense.
Now you've gone from the
Last question.
from Vikings and Copper to this, three very specific time periods and ideas. You suffering any whiplash from that kind of thing?
No, it's actually, it's someone's asking me that when you're like doing summer repertory theater and say you have a Joe Orton comedy in rep and you're rehearsing the Sam Shepard play during the day, that's kind of what you get used to. You kind of get away from that in this career, but it was much more intense last year. It was much more intense during Copper and Sons of Anarchy when I was literally going between the two cities. One day here, one day there. And then during Gotham the pilot, I was doing 2 really massive episodes of Law & Order with the Pablo Schreiber episode. So that was, but I think it's a challenge. I actually think like if you need something done, give it to a busy man. Like you're more on point when it's challenging. Yeah, I seem to thrive in that environment more than when it's like, I don't have really as much pressure as much to do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.